As we mentioned in our last video, pay close attention. As we mentioned in our last Witch Slap video, I'm so sorry. Uh, and as we mentioned in our last Witch Slap video, hey everyone, welcome to PopWire. My name's Rowell.
I'm Christina.
And today we have two of the revival bosses together at the same time. We're so excited to have you. Yeah, introduce yourselves. And
it's so weird to hear bosses. That makes it sound like I don't know. Like when I think of my boss, it was always in a negative connotation. I don't know. I want to be collaborator.
Okay.
Two of the maybe lead collaborators, if you will. Okay. Hi, I'm Aaron. But yes, thank you for having me.
And I'm Luke. So great to be here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you both for taking the time. We're excited. So yeah, my very first question is, Aaron, you brought the show to, your both of your shows, Revival, to Comic-Con for the very first time, and it was the first time for a lot of you, even the writers and some of the cast as well. What was that experience like for the both of you?
I mean, it was surreal. I think it was. You make something and you just hope that it resonates with like literally anyone outside of Luke and I, and so when you start to see that and you start to see people who are passionate and, and more than just interested, like invested, like legitimately invested into these characters you created. And, and you spend all this time to make little things work that are really important to you in the moment. And then I've had movies before where I've done something and I'm like, I don't think anyone has ever figured out why I spent so much time doing this thing, and you meet people and see people who have done that and they just care, and it just makes you care more, and it creates this like reciprocal love fest, and it was really special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked about at one point, when we didn't know when we're gonna actually start airing, we thought, man, it would be great if we could premiere Revival at San Diego Comic-Con, and then we found out we were gonna premiere in June, and we're like, well, okay, so this is gonna be maybe midway through the season, and I'm actually really glad that it turned out that way. I think we got lucky with Comic-Con for a couple of reasons. Number one, that it was so fun to see people who had already invested in the show. So just meeting the fans was so special. I'll never forget it. And then on top of that, it was nice because it's like, at one point Comic-Con was just like Marvel movies and DC movies and this huge movies, and that they've kind of broken off and doing their own thing. So now it's a lot of like this year was crazy, just insane busy, but the shows were kind of the showcase, and so it felt good to be in kind of that class. I think the timing of it was really special, and I'm really grateful for when we got to go for different reasons.
Yeah, it was absolutely great to meet you both there.
Yes,
cool experience.
One of the highlights.
So Luke, I know you've been working on this project the longest, correct?
Yes, longer than him.
Yes.
He jokes about that all the time.
So how is it for you to see it finally come to fruition and see it on cable?
I mean, I'm still kind of processing it, to be honest with you. I don't know. When you go through a process this long, you go through a lot of ups and downs, as you can imagine. And I'm putting that lightly. There's a lot of no's and there's a lot of, will this work? Will this not work? A lot of different versions. And so, it's not just to see it done, but it's to see it done in a way that I think is the best possible version that it could be. And then to see it with Aaron, who, to share that with him. And I'm gonna start crying. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get there already. But yeah, just to sort of have that, to share it with someone else, I think is the most special thing. So I'm gonna stop because I'll just yeah, it's very special. It's hard. I'm still processing everything. I'm still kind of, it's all just a lot. So
Luke and I are in the midst of a thing right now. It's like really weird, and we're both we love each other. That's the other thing too, like I think people make stuff and it can be really hard, and there were hard times that Luke and I had, and don't get me wrong, but he's a brother to me, and so we formed something special that regardless of the show is going to like continue on forever. And I think that's a really great thing. And and you hope to do that when you're creating that with people and with the cast too and others and all this. But Luke and I, we were talking about this, and we got all these photos with everyone. We actually got no photos of the two of us together. But for the entire show, anything, Comic-Con, like there were just, because it was the two of us, we were always split up in different things. And like I'd be on set, he'd be on set, different, we're at different places all the time. So everything was always like divide and conquer in so many ways. But yeah, but that's we formed bonds with fans, with our cast, and together, and I think that makes it something really special. And then the timing of when we're doing this, with the last episode airing, it's still very fresh and weird. I mean, I've heard, never been a parent, of course, but I've heard of like, women who have a child and then the postpartum depression and all this. And it's like, I kind of feel like I have postpartum depression, like it's this weird moment of like, okay, now we work so hard to make this weird life, and now it's there, and now I don't know what to do. And you just hope that you get to do it and get to continue. But yeah, so we've been crying and talking a lot, and like it's a weird feeling at this exact moment. So I think that's part of welcome to this interview, because it's going to be a weird one for us. Yeah.
We like weird. That's fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so during season 1, like the making of it, like filming, writing, or the whole development process, and as well as it airing on TV, what has been the biggest surprise for both of you?
I mean, I
Surprise.
don't know if it's the biggest surprise. I mean, I'll say a surprise that kind of came through for me was just realizing that how the simple moments work. And I think, I come from a genre background where you have to get in these high concept ideas, and so I was like, oh, you got to go crazier with this scene and all this. And then you spend so much time doing it. And then some of my favorite moments are literally just two people talking. And so the simplicity of that, now granted, that comes with the actors. I mean, we are just so blessed. I mean, blessed is the wrong word. I'm an atheist, but we are so lucky to have the actors that we have. And so I think they allow those scenes to feel real and create another level to them. But that was something that just kind of, I was like, I don't need to go crazy here, because I have these amazing humans who can take our silly words and give them meaning on a level that didn't expect. I hoped, you hope for it, but then you see it happen, and I'm like, oh, I could just watch Andy and Mel just look at each other cutely for a while and sit on it, and I'm like, oh, I love it. It's amazing, So it's that there's something special about that, the simplicity of it. Also, just watching Dana investigate, like this happened during the show. And because we'd already made a number of episodes, and we were in episode 8, which is the one that got rewritten a number of times. It was very, very changed, very twisty. And I remember Luke brought it up, and he was so right. It was just, I just love watching Dana investigate. And I'm like, me too. Like there's a reason why those shows work. And like we're now realizing it, and I don't watch a lot of those shows, like the procedurals, if you will. It's not necessarily in my zeitgeist and something that I spend a lot of time on, but I get why it can be comfort food, because there's something really fun about finding a clue and getting the next clue and getting the next clue. And again, when you have Melanie Scrofano, it goes to another level. But that just the simplicity that can translate to the screen, I think was a surprise to me, for sure. I'd have to think about the biggest surprise, but that was, as on a small scale, that was something that definitely caught me off guard.
Yeah, I mean, not to cop out on the answer, but I would say the exact same thing. It was the surprise of the emotional stakes and how much bigger they felt than the set pieces. And we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, building the show around those set pieces, to just give maximum impact. We wanted this thing to be ambitious. And then you get into the weeds and you realize that all the setup that you've done and on the small the small portions are the most satisfying. And so that, along with Aaron, it was that surprised me the most, the smaller, the moments, like I think my easily one of my favorite scenes in the show is, the scene with Dana and Wayne at the table, just talking for the first time. You've built this, these walls up between them, and then when they start to get to chip away, it's so satisfying. It's two people at a table talking. To me, it was more, fascinating and fun to watch than these big action sequences.
So I have started reading comics since I right after I watched the screener for episode 10. I was like, okay, now I'm jumping into the comics. And I'm almost halfway through them now. And I really like the way that you guys have adapted it. So like, how did you decide what you wanted to keep and what you wanted to change from that original source material?
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing right away was that we talked about, we didn't want to spend multiple seasons trying to investigate M's murder. That was sort of the start of sort of that adaptation. It was like, no, we're not gonna stretch this out and frustrate people. Let's tell this story in season 1. The problem with that is that in the book, it's the same in the show, that largely the answer of who killed M is related to what caused Revival Day. So those two dramatic questions are the core of the show. So we knew that we were really going to have to really jump around in order to get that story into season 1, and that story was going to sort of close a pretty big chapter, this M murder mystery. And so we kind of worked backwards from there. We chose a lot of moments in the comic that we felt were impactful and big touchstones that people would be looking for, and we kind of built around that. But then, from there, we really just let the characters, how we built more backstory into the characters that we wanted to see, that we wanted to kind of, really reframe or recontextualize, and just let them kind of tell us where to go throughout that process.
Yeah, it was throwing a bunch of things on a board, and it was nice because I was newer coming to the comic. Luke had lived with this for so long, so it created a nice partnership. Of I'll go off on these crazy ideas, and Luke would kind of reel me back in to some things that are based on the comic, and then the comic would send us off into some crazy ideas, and then we'd have to reel back in on like, wait, we can't quite do some of these things, some of the side quests that happen in the comic. It goes in some very, very wild directions, and we wanted to lull everyone into the sense of a more grounded murder mystery show, and then get into some of the supernatural and get into some of the crazier things later. That's why the passenger, the creep from the comic, comes in a little later for us, versus it's like, panel 5 or something, like in the first, right off the bat, Cooper playing with his toys, and it's right there. And so that was something that, I mean, I think at first we had the passenger earlier in our very, very early drafts. And the more we kind of kept digging in, the more it made sense to kind of save that. But yeah, it was really kind of putting up on this board, a mural board, literally, these are all these touchstones. Like, you can't do it without this, and you can't do it without this. And oddly, there are still a few things that, as I'm rereading the comic as well right now, and there's a few things I was like, man, I can't believe we did season 1 and we didn't do this. So there are a few things that we want to be able to open ourselves up to be able to kind of go back into, if we're lucky to have future seasons, where we can go on those side quests, but integrate them into maybe a new story that's within that. But yeah, as Luke said, the murder mystery was the biggest thing that we wanted to try to solve. And, because the show is really about M's journey, and that's not just season 1. The whole show is really about M. I mean, that's part of the fun of episode 1, which is it doesn't feel like it's M's show at that moment. And then and then when you realize what's happened and don't tell dad, and then you get to the end, I mean, it's why it's on her face looking into the lens, it's going to be her journey, and her journey goes so beyond what is even in the comics and what's there, and these ideas and what we wanted to do, we think are really, really fun. But it's centered on M's arc. But that was, we had plans beyond the comic that are even alluded to in season 1 that you might not fully understand everything right now, which is by design. It was like, give some big answers, but there's actually more answers in the season than I think people will realize. But as a rewatch, and then as things hopefully move toward a season 2, things will start to recontextualize, and you'll be like, wait, like, oh my God, that means this was this, and it'll be really fun. I'm trying to find a way to dance around it without giving away some stuff, because there's like a couple big things that would happen that have been teased that are not yet realized, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So the PopWire team, as season 1 was airing, we were not familiar with the comics. So we were in for a wild ride. We didn't know what was coming next. But my question is, for the viewers who are fans of the original comics, what has the response been like to the show?
I mean, I've seen great things. I mean, I've seen a lot of people have reached out to me saying, that they love the comic and they appreciate the fact that the show doesn't actually, follow everything exactly the same. It helps make it feel fresh and new while still being able to, really pinpoint some of those little Easter eggs that we've left in, or moments that we've left in, or done just slightly different. So, I mean, and that was kind of our intent. Our intent was to be able to honor this source material as much as we can. We love it, obviously. But still give people who knew it something new to guess, right? Like I don't know. I think sometimes fans of things watch stuff, and I'm even guilty of this, to saying, I want this to be exactly like the thing I know. But I think when it's that way, you're disappointed. You're kind of left still hungry. I remember being so excited about Gus Van Sant's Psycho. If you all recall this shot for shot remake of Psycho, Gus Van Sant was like one of my favorite directors at this point, and he made this shot by shot, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, he's getting Vince Vaughn to play. It was so exciting. And then you get this movie that is exactly the same with just different people, and it felt so disappointing. It was one of the most disappointing things I've ever experienced.
As someone who wasn't as integrated into that world, and was there, but it seems, I mean, people seem to really dig it. I mean, we have not had any like, how dare you, stuff. I mean, but there were things that we knew we weren't going to change. But then also, I think having Tim and Mike available to us to, because there were even, I can't remember what they were. I remember I had a couple ideas, and I was like, hey, can let's ask Tim if this is cool. And you're like, no. And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And so we moved on, and we had the heart of that was understood, that we were consulting. I wanted to make sure that we weren't, I mean, literally right before I walked on stage at San Diego Comic-Con, I'm standing behind the podium talking to Tim and Mike, and they just watched an episode, and I hadn't talked to them in person about it. And I was like, so before we get up there, do you hate me right now? Or are you like, where are we at? And they're like, what? We love the show. And I'm like, are you sure? You're sure, right? You're sure. Because I just want to make, like, we have made a lot of changes, and they were saying like, yeah, go. They kept, giving us the freedom to go. But I care so much about the opportunity to adopt something that I think is really, really special. And, and sometimes it'd be like, what am I doing? Like, this is great already. Why am I trying to change this? But it is a different medium. And I think in the end, like, we just had to kind of trust our gut for like what we thought was going to translate best to the screen versus on the panels. And, and just make the thing that made us happy in that moment, and was there. But yes, I'm still always nervous about it, and I texted Tim again, even a few weeks ago, like, hey, still good, right? Still good, so yeah.
I got to ask about Lester. I know I messaged both of you as soon as I finished episode 10, and was like, oh my God, Lester, did not expect that. But now reading the comics, it does make a bit more sense. Though it did make sense to also going back and seeing what little bits you guys sprinkled in. So how did you decide what details you wanted to put in about Lester and what you wanted to leave out until the very end?
It was hard. I will say it was hard because there's this line of too much Lester gives it away, and too little Lester makes it feel like, wait, what? How random is him? I will say it's very funny to both of us that so many people caught on to the Brent twin name. His name's Brant, and that people thought that Brent's twin was going to be the killer. There were a number of people who thought that. Like, I mean, there were, and it was so funny. And truth be told, I'll give you, so here's the scoop on this. Not scoop, but whatever. Luke and I was literally writing episode 8. He's texting with me. He was watching a cut of 6, I believe it was, or no, I don't know, one of the cuts.
I remember.
And he's like, man, Mark Little's so good. He's so good. Like, I can't believe we're killing him. I can't believe this. And I was like, yeah, he's just so fun. There's something about his character and the way he plays off of Mel. It was so great. I was like, I wish there was a way we could bring him back. And I just was literally writing. I rewrote a scene.
I made a joke. If you recall, I go,
oh yeah, sorry.
I go, Aaron, just for
that's right. That's right.
Joke about he has a twin, and it was just and it meant to be nothing, and there was a silence. I get nothing on my phone, and then like a couple minutes later, Aaron's like, I wrote it. It's in there, and I'm like, you did not, and it was hilarious.
And I was like, I think this is fun. And then when we got to the edit, and the whole reason was originally just to keep Mark Little around, like that's it. But then it became like, well, if somebody's really paying attention, this is going to feel like in my opinion, would be the bad version of the show that has like the twin, or like it was all a dream, or like those types of twists that I think have been done to death. And I was like, but you know what? People will still think that. And so that was fun. And we were in the edit, and we're working with Sandy Perez, our editor and wonderful editor on episode 8. And I remember we had to cut for time. And I was like, we probably should just cut this. And I was like, but I don't know. I want to keep this in. I think it's important. And also, I like that conversation because he's talking about, you're actually getting the history of Brent and his mother and Lou Gehrig's disease, and kind of tying, you can kind of start to see the breadcrumbs of like how he's going down this path and what led to that. And, Lester, who was paying him, to do this. And, so there were elements of that, but yeah, that's where that started. And it was fun to see everybody kind of go down that rabbit hole, which was really, really nice. But sorry, back to your original question. I think finding the balance of too much or too little Lester was a hard one to be. And, and we always thought about this, and we talked with Peter Millard, who plays Lester, a lot about, you have ulterior motives in everything you're doing, right? And what's going on, and and where his mindset was at different times when he's talking to Jeannie, when he's talking to Wayne. What information is he trying to get across? Why is he talking to them? What is he trying to mislead? And so now if you go back and rewatch all the Lester scenes, they all have an entirely different meaning when you're understanding what he's doing and what he's capable of. The same with, I think, Bethia as well. And you'll start to see layers of this. But it was hard. But look, this was a comic thing. And I don't think at any point we ever talked about there being a different killer. I think it was always like Lester felt kind of cool to do as that. And I will say the original Lester that we talked to was Colin Mockery.
Uh-huh.
And it was a comedian, which might have like made him feel too prescient, I think, and could have given something away. But yeah, I think it was always going to be Lester. It was in the comic, and it made sense. It was in it. He's someone who had the means, right? He's got this. He's obsessed with life, and would have the means to be able to do the research to kind of dig up the water source and these things to kind of go on this journey. So it all tracked and made sense. Anybody else, I think, would have felt forced.
Yeah, the original Lester in the comic is based on Jack LaLanne. So Jack LaLanne, if you're unfamiliar, was this huge fitness guru. Started in I want to say the 50s or the 60s, and was obsessed with sort of basically pushing pushing the aging process away. He had a book called Live Young Forever. And so that, I remember talking to Tim originally. It was funny because when I originally got the rights to Revival, it wasn't done yet. It was still moving, and I didn't know who the killer was. And the first conversation that we had on it, I was like, okay, you got to tell me who the killer is. And I remember him telling me and me going, what? And so we talked about it, and he kind of explained that's whole thing. So, that always stuck with me. I was like, oh, that's great. That's really great. Like, you have this, believable motive, essentially, that this person has built his career and his life on not aging. And so the tough thing with that is it's so obvious that you have to sprinkle it without it being so present that it's that obvious, right? Like, that was the thing that I think I was most concerned about, was like, will people get and understand early enough the idea that Lester is this fitness guru, that he has this motivation, that it's been there the whole time. We've talked about it. And he does, he mentions his book Strong Century in the pilot, the first time we ever see him. But will it be there, not so, pushed forward that it just suddenly becomes the most obvious motive, to suddenly everybody's alive. So that was, I think, the trickiest thing. And thank God, I think we pulled it off, dare I say. So.
No, you guys did great. At first I was just like, what? And then I sat on it and I was like, no, that makes sense. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. And I like how you did it, and to not make it obvious at all.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's great. Yeah.
The Colin Mockery thing, I can totally picture him as Lester, and I'm just laughing in my head because
Yeah.
all right, so I have a clarification question ish.
Yeah.
Are passengers, are they souls, or are they aliens, or is that still up for interpretation?
No, we say it. We say it. They're souls.
They are for sure souls. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's fine to confirm. I mean, what I will say is that Lester might not always know everything that's going on correctly, right? So, like, Lester is not some divine person who has a full understanding of everything about this. I mean, he in his monologue, he does talk about how we didn't know what to expect and we didn't see. So there's some unknowns that were happening with Rose and then to M. And I think that starts when you start to think about it that way. And it's like, wait a second, we just thought we were going to get, this was going to unlock a way for us to consume, take, this fountain of youth, if you will, that could be born out of the water and of a woman capable of producing life, as he says. But beyond that, and he thinks of it as a sacred ritual. That's why he was mad at Aaron and all this. Beyond that, though, I will just say everything that he says, he might not fully know why or how, because he was still learning and experimenting, I think, as things were kind of going on. But I do think that it is fine to say that him saying it's your soul, Martha, I think that is a correct conclusion for him to draw and the audience to draw.
Yeah, but the context there, I think, is that what is the soul? right? So like that's the one thing. Like we're saying soul because it's the easiest way to express to the audience, and it's the easiest way for Lester to express to M what they are. But there was a whole thing that we had written there that Lester said that kind of expanded on it and sort of talked about what the soul was in different cultures and through history. At one point he calls them the pneuma, which is Greek for breath of life. And so there's more philosophy behind it, I think, than just, sort of reducing it to soul. But in essence, it's saying, yes, this is a thing that is part of you. It's from a more spiritual dimension than a physical one. And that's sort of the key there. Now, where we go on that, is we'll see what we do. But yes, to Aaron's point, it's the simplified version.
Is there a significance in the color difference between MSO and the others that we'll know?
Is there? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. I've seen a number of people ask that, and you see it. So if you notice when she's walking down the wall, dragging her hand,
Mhm.
it's yellow
Okay.
at that point. And then when she puts her hand on the wall, it turns purple. And so, and I think that we're seeing that what happened with Rose was kind of something started to happen. So there is something with the water and something started to happen. But then for some reason with M, an entirely different thing happened that was exponentially more powerful. And so something is going on in that, I mean, we are saying, I mean, the amount of times we literally say M is special in this season, there's a lot, so I think her soul would also be quote unquote special in some way. We could be as reductive as to say that, this is the stripe to the rest of the gremlins, in a way, but part of it was meant to kind of illustrate that, this is definitely M's, like it's reacting to her. And it was her counterpart.
Mm.
So, but there's more to that to kind of get at. And there's more to, because again, Lester, like I said, I think there's a lot to unearth about what Lester was doing specifically, like ritualistically. Why does he have the mask? Why is this a sacred ritual? Why does he have the carving on his chest? What does all this mean? And we don't get into all that in season 1. I think it's very clear that he's experimenting with a lot of different things. And as Luke was alluding to, there are actually a lot of cultural connections. And if you listen to part of Aaron's speech on the tape for a minute, even just for like a second, he starts to talk about, with his book and, the Banks of Broken Creek, and which is his book, which is, and what he was writing about. And, so there's just a lot more there that ties to it. And I think all of that will also be illustrated in why the passenger and in her soul was different.
So where the hell are Em and Nithina? It's
Huh.
like we had two very different interpretations of the ending, Rowell and I.
Ah.
My interpretation, I feel like Nithya probably somehow came and saved Em while Dana was unconscious, and they snuck out through the tunnels that were mentioned and went to learn wherever they are. Rowell, do you want to explain?
Yeah, so like I can't remember which one of you we spoke with, but I asked if this was the last time we've seen Jordan, and I think it was you, Aaron. And then you said that yes, this is the last time we saw Jordan in Wausau. So in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe M is now in that world where Jordan, the same world as Jordan, but then that doesn't really explain like the whole Nithya being there.
I mean, unless Nithya died of cancer.
Hmm.
Huh. I don't know. And that's all I'll say. Someone was asking on Twitter, which, I mean, goodness, people are just so beautiful and wonderful, and their response to stuff, they're just like, it's overwhelming and so special. The people that reach out. So like, if you think, like, we read all of them. So if anybody thinks like, oh, I don't want to, I mean, yes, we love it. It means the world. Every time someone had asked, where is this taking place? And I didn't want to answer that question. I said, I think we deliberately want to leave it open to know that, I mean, all is that it's sure looked and felt like M died. And everybody thought she died. 35 days later, her whole family, everyone, is treating her as dead. And then Nithya's not looking good, getting chemo. And then that chair is empty for some reason. And then they are 35 days later, they are in an undisclosed location on a beachish type place, right by the water, a place that M has always said she's never been. And then if you listen to the credits, which you can't, like on SYFY, it cuts off, but like on the screeners, and then when it's on Peacock, when the music finally stops, which is one of my all-time favorite songs we're playing at the end, when the music finally stops, you just hear the sounds of the waves and the ocean, which is very deliberate. But it is meant to be very open-ended in that, that Nithya might have been up to something, and we don't know what that means exactly. But the fact that she requested to have M as, the petition to have her, and then the ties to Aaron and all this, like, what does that mean? And I think rewatching some of her, if you think that she might know more about what was going on, and then you rewatch some of her scenes, I think they might be enlightening, I will say. But where they're at and the state of them, I think, is left to be open for interpretation specifically. So I'm glad that you had two different interpretations, because it's meant to bring you in different directions. But it is a very we know, and there's a thing, and it will be explained. Hopefully,
It's not
in a season two.
Wisconsin. I will say that.
Yes, it's not Wisconsin. That's very true. It's not Wisconsin.
Not even
Yeah.
North America. So yeah.
You guys seem to get very lucky with your cast and crew, both in front and of the camera and like behind scenes. And it, like, how did you get such like big names and insane talent?
Man,
I mean, I have a no asshole policy to start, right? So you ask around a lot of people. I mean, there were even actors that we looked at and would ask others, and they're like, nope, you don't want to hire them for whatever. And, so we really tried to be very careful and very specific about personality fit and all that, so I think that's part of what starts. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think a couple dominoes start to fall, and then people do get excited about working with some of those people. That's part of it as well. But we were stubborn in casting, I will say. I mean, this was not yeah, they seem good. Like, we were making our own casting list, hours and hours of pouring through additional people, requesting new tapes, finding people, watching, and we wouldn't just watch scenes that people had been in. We would watch interviews with them to try to understand personality, try to understand cadence, just what they're into. I went to all their social medias to see, are they crazy? Are they whatever? You never know, like everything. And all of those things start to come together to kind of play into this. But I mean, I created an Excel spreadsheet that was vast, that had tons of names in bold and moving around, and that we sent to our casting directors, and we're asking for more tapes upon the tapes they were getting. I mean, it was a very tumultuous situation, yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But once you found someone, then it was like, you got to get them. So that became the thing. It was like, okay, this person works. We have to get them. And then it was, what can we do? Writing letters, Zooming, connecting, Instagramming, like, hey, what, anything that you can do to try to say, like, we really think we're trying to do something special, and here's why we want you to be a part of it. And I will say, just as like a film producer and filmmaker for many years, whenever you're casting, and I'm casting 2 movies right now, whenever we're casting, I always try to, what I do is I actually go through the script, and I will pull, and I did this on Revival as well. And I would pull and see, okay, if we're casting for Ibrahim, how many scenes does Ibrahim have in this? And I do a report on Final Draft that literally will show you what they're doing. Because actors will just like, okay, where am I at? Where am I at? Yeah. These other people, where am I at? Where am I at? and I'm not saying Andy did this, but you know, people will do this. And then you're like, what is their moment? And every actor needs to have a moment. And it's like, why are they doing this show? And so you try to give everyone a moment, right? That's like, you think of Nella, for example, Lynette Ware, great actress, does a lot of bigger stuff, does a small role in this. She had a bigger moment in 2 that unfortunately got cut down a little bit. It was a longer speech with her and Wayne. I wish we could have had more of that for time. But then we were able to give another moment later with Lester and then after Lester, and then she starts reprimanding Wayne, right? And it's like, when you're doing it, and I think of, okay, they want to have a reel, like that's her scene. It's going to go in a reel, I'm sure. And that I know they're going to take that. So you just try to think of the practicality of what an actor needs and what they want. You know, I'm a big believer in Freakonomics and understanding wants and needs of individuals. And actors are doing this because they want to act. They want to feel like their character has pathos, has something to say, that's something that's different. And if you can weight the script with things and then go through and be like, okay, why? Why would they want to do this? You know, and start questioning it. Then you can start to curate and create moments that show them, you know, how they're going to stand out, you know, and what that's going to become. So I think all of that together, and, you know, Luke and I just putting our feet down and saying, no, we don't like, I mean, we would get lists with tapes, you know, 30, 40 tapes, and we'd say, none of them. And I feel bad. They're still good. They could be great actors. They just weren't right for this part. And we weren't going to give up until they were right for the part. And we just stuck. And that's why we were casting so late in the process, which is unfortunate, but it worked out. But through the skin of our teeth, it worked out.
Aaron, I believe you mentioned that you already have like the next 2 seasons planned out in your head and a little bit of season 4. And my question for either of you is, what can you say now about a potential season 2 of Revival? If it gets renewed, when it gets renewed, that you haven't told yet to any other outlet?
I will say that like M's story is so much bigger and crazier than I think anyone is expecting. I think that's very exciting. You know, we talk about, you know, we have loose ideas, we have ideas, we have a journey that we know we want to go on. When it comes to the season 4 part, that's an entirely different thing. That's a very fun, very different era, I will say, of the show that would happen. That could be really interesting. But there's going to be a new central mystery that I think will bring together some past stuff that was alluded to in the first season into light, into some really interesting ways. You know, I mean, I think what we just said, the surprising thing for us was learning that these smaller moments can really work. I think we're going to lean into our actors in some ways, but there's some pretty crazy stuff too. That's definitely going to happen. And it's building, like, in my mind, and again, this is Luke and I still need to hash this all out completely, but in my mind, there's a very massive thing that happens at the end of season 3, like massive. And I want to build with that in mind, is kind of the current goal of myself. And what's fun is like when Luke and I start talking about ideas, I think, and we just did it like literally the other day, like impromptu. We weren't even trying to do it. We're like, oh, this and then this. And it's like, well, you know what'd be great was this. And I'm like, yes, and this. And we're already going, and it starts to evolve and shape. And I think we also want to be open to the ideas of the writer's room, the ideas of other folks and what's there. So once we start to come together, like we could go some different directions, but I think Central Mystery, M's got some crazy shit for sure that's coming. And we're going to stay focused on our current characters. I don't think we're trying to bring in big new characters in a big way. I mean, there will be new characters that come in, you know, but it's still going to be focused on our main 5. You know, M, Dana, Wayne, Ibrahim, and Blaine. I think Blaine will also remain a big part of the future.
If I can make a tiny request.
Sure.
So I really want, and Paige is totally 100% down for this, but Dr. Morell and Maytel in a relationship. they're both down for it. So if you can make that happen,
I mean, we've got poor May is being shipped with Dana, M, and now Carla, which is impressive. I don't know. We might just have to do, a big
I mean, we had plans of something with May and one of our core cast members, I will say, was something that was planned, but didn't feel right in season 1. We wanted to focus on revealing May and Rose's story and paying without feeling, but I do believe that May deserves love. I will tell you that. I do believe that May deserves love. And so I can almost guarantee you that in season 2, we're lucky that there will be a May Tao storyline of love. Yes. Or some pursuit of love.
Okay. And I already have the shipper name, May and Carla, #Marla. There you go.
Okay. All right.
I've seen that. And
I mean, I love Paige. Paige, I gave, so quick aside on Paige. I gave Paige her first feature film role, and I gave her first TV role. And, was someone that we discovered similar to Romy had done a bunch of stuff, but like Paige was someone, we had a small movie called Sorry About the Demon. And, we went through tons and tons of tapes, we were shooting in Canada and in Toronto and just trying to find someone. And she just was amazing, like just thoroughly amazing. And then when it came to, going through everything here, she was on the list. Poor Paige auditioned for everyone. Paige auditioned for Dana at one point when we didn't know if we were going to go with a bigger name at one point. Paige auditioned for a lot of people. And, so trying to find, but we always knew, I was like, Luke, I really want to get her in for something, and I believe, and again, it's part of that. You have like I said, a no asshole policy. Like we take it very seriously. In Paige is like the antithesis of the no asshole policy, like is just the sweetest, kindest person who just connects with everyone on set, is so loving, so full of life, and just understands the role of like the supporting actor, who's there to give her scene mates these moments and what's there. And I even think, I don't believe, I wish we could have given more to what we wanted to do with Carla, because I don't think we even played to all of Paige's amazing strengths yet. Because she's not a hardened person, which Carla is at the beginning. And, she's got to get there. And her best moment in my mind is her in the car with Ibrahim in 9, when you see her kind of heartbroken and what's there. And I think there's a lot more to pull back layers of. So love the suggestion. Keep them coming. Everybody, I would love, hey, we're literally going through this stuff right now. So if people have suggestions, like, I want to see this, like, tell us. Like, if you're ever going to get anything, we listen. We'll listen to what's there. I mean, we're going to do what we think is best. Don't get me wrong. We're very stubborn. But at the same time, like, love hearing the theories, love the suggestions. And, we make this with the fans in mind, and if there were things that were suggested and thought about, and it was like, if they would kill us if we did that. And so we don't want to do that, and we think about that. And I think that anyone who doesn't want to do that, and just, we like messing with the audience, but at the same time respecting the audience. And I think there's a fine line there to play. So.
Okay, with Chucky and Resident Alien ending, I feel like the odds for revival of season 2 are really good. Any idea when you'll hear back? And then also, what can fans do to help make that decision happen in your favor?
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't know. I mean, I'll just say it. We don't know. We're hoping that we'll hear soon. I think that, TV is odd. We're in an odd time with TV. But streaming is king, and the numbers on Peacock are going to matter. And so the show needs to be completely on Peacock. It needs to be fully bingeable, and we need to see how that turns out. I know people who are like, yeah, I'm waiting for the whole thing to drop before I watch it, because I want to watch the whole thing. And so we're lucky in the sense that we got a week to week. I love that idea. It helps with that. We come from the world of, a water cooler, talking about it every week. We were there. We had the Lost watch parties. That's special to me. So I'm so happy we had that. But so many people binge television. So that needs to happen. They need to evaluate those numbers. They need to see how it, how it performs, how it grows. So we'll wait. We'll wait to see how that happens. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later. But look, I think, we were told like the social media noise matters. The trending things matter. Hashtags, talking about the show, rating it, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, anywhere you can rate it. The best thing we can do is just not let up on enthusiasm. So, we appreciate everything that people have already done. It's amazing. I think I just saw Revival Season 2 is still trending on Twitter this morning, which is amazing. Keeping that up, putting it out there, it all matters. They pay attention. They do pay attention.
Yeah, there's also a special data point that's related to signing up on Peacock and immediately going to Revival and clicking to watch it. So anyone that does that, that's kind of like a super watch, if you will, of some sort. So I know that's a very specific data point that they look at, because is the show driving new users, right, to that platform? So I know that that's a big factor. So, signing up for Peacock to watch the show and then just going straight, searching Revival, going straight and hitting play is a big one. So, and what's there, and total minutes viewed on Peacock matter, so that too, like, just we could have it in the background right now if we need to. I think it's going to be a minimum of a few weeks, just because it needs to air on Peacock, and we always knew they needed to air the whole season, because it's so as Luke was saying, TV is completely crazy, especially cable TV is in a very, very interesting, crazy spot. And so the show, we are also a fully independent show. So, and I don't think a lot of people fully realize this or even understand what that means. But like, this is a show, it says SYFY original and all this, but like, it is licensed to SYFY. Like, I sold the show to them. They licensed it. We have international partners. So it's not like it's out there and it's only like, it's a unique situation that it's an independent show that they took the rights to, and so it'll start airing, in Spain, in France in October. We have a deal that'll be announced very soon. I don't mind saying here, in the UK with Sky, which is amazing. So that's a huge outlet for us. It's on Binge in Australia. It's done very, very well, Binge in Australia. So those matter too. Like, all of those matter. But the biggest driver is going to going back to the NBC family and Peacock, in particular Peacock right now, because unless you have if you have a Nielsen box, totally different. Oh my God. I'll personally send you things to watch it on Nielsen, with your Nielsen box. But beyond that, it's Peacock is what's gonna matter, and try to hit some more of those charts, get higher in the Just Watch data, get higher in the Peacock charts. Will go a very, very long way. And yeah, then the fresh signups is a huge part of this.
Okay, cool. Okay, very quickly, I don't know if I'll need to cut this out from the recording.
Before we let you guys go, are there any other projects you guys want to plug real quick?
I mean, I have a movie that I produced, lead producer on, that I've developed and worked on for like 5 years, called Shelby Oaks. It comes out October 3rd. It'll be in theaters everywhere. It is super dark, super scary, pretty messed up. It's with Neon, single did Long Legs, and Together. It's playing, the trailer's playing before Weapons right now and before Together right now, which is like totally, completely crazy. So it's yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. And then then a couple other small movies, but we don't have dates for them yet.
So my team, they've been doing stuff. I've got exclusivity with Revival, so I don't have much, I'm working on stuff that I hope to get out there, but yeah, nothing other than stuff that I'm sort of adjacent to a little bit. We just finished a film called Chili Finger, which is hilarious, with John Goodman and Bryan Cranston and Judy Greer and Sean Astin. It's hilarious. It's so funny. So that'll be out hopefully. I actually don't know when it'll be out. We just finished shooting it about a month ago. But yeah.
One real cool thing that has happened recently is Luke Boyce, Revival co-creator and co-showrunner, has re-released a film on Blu-ray that he created a few years ago. It's called Revealer. It's on Blu-ray right now. It looks really cool. Here's the art on it. I believe it's based off of a comic. It was written by Tim Seeley, who you know from Revival, and then it is a Paper Street Pictures production. And Luke looks like he directed it, he edited it, he did a lot of stuff on it. It was really cool. And it is available for purchase on vinegarsyndrome.com. We will make sure we link it down below. I'm gonna open it up. Like the disc looks awesome. The art. And then the whole
colors.
the book that comes in it, one full of really cool stuff from the movie info, but then you get into it and it's got the first issue of Revealer, so you can
Whole issue.
follow along and kind of see what it's based off of.
Wow. What's it about?
Tensions rise when a stripper and religious protester are trapped together in a peep show booth and must come together to survive the apocalypse in 1980s Chicago. That's badass. Go check it out. I believe there's only about 20 copies left on Vinegar Syndrome, so make sure you go get your copy ASAP. I just want to remind everybody to go and first listen to the Paper Street Productions podcast. I know, Aaron, you said that's your company. You guys have podcast episodes for every episode of Revival, I believe, correct?
Yeah, they're deep dives. Like, and it's like Luke and I talk for like over an hour into everything. We recap the full episode and go into like a pretty big deep dive into everything. And then we have one of the cast members of from every episode is also in, and they talk about their journey working on the show. And then we're also going to have like a recap thing at the end, and we might also bring in some of the crew and some other folks too. So yeah, hosted by Sean and Liz. And Sean is my oldest friend. We met on the bus in 8th grade. So love Sean to death, and he's great at this.
We're going to have a link for that in the description, so you guys can go and everyone can go check that out. The entire first season of Revival is available to stream on Peacock, so be sure to follow PopWire on all social platforms, and you can find us pretty much everywhere.
And as we mentioned in our last Witch Slap video, pay close attention to these videos, including this one. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then as Christina just said, binge Revival on Peacock. Yes, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Aaron and Luke, for joining us. Love you guys, adore you guys. And fingers crossed for season 2. Yeah, my name is Rowell.
I'm Christina.
Oh, I'm Aaron. I didn't realize. I thought it was just like a PopWire thing. So,
And I'm Luke.
And we will see you guys next time. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.